Advanced grading. We'll show you how to manipulate your grading system to call previous existing score and use in your current term. Assuming you are trying to assess, for instance, you are on your third term, you are trying to assess or grade total score of student from first term, second term, and you want to use it in your third term, for instance, to calculate cumulative. How do you do that? How do you configure your grading system to give you that? So on this view here, as you can see here, this is our grading system for subjects, and we have the grade scheme, we have the CAE scheme. You can also check that in this nursery school level, we've moved from first term to second term. So we are assuming here that there was a first term for which grades were computed and there were results generated for that term, or there were grades for the first term. But now we move to second term, and let's assume we want to pick a student score from first term and use it in our second term grading. So in nersapp, in the previous version, you have to manually add the previous grade in the new grading structure. But in this new version, there are ways we've incorporated in your grading system that can allow you call those data and use them in your current grade. So let's go through that. So we're going to switch from grade to CAE. So our concern is majorly on CAE. But before we go through it in detail, I want you to take a note here. In the grading system, or in most of the grading system, be it for subject, behavior and skills, attendance, and maybe some financial details when you're dealing with finances, you will discover that there are some information once you use them in a particular term. Say, for instance, you generated results for first time with a particular grade structure, like in this case, a nursery grade system for grade scheme and CAE scheme. nersapp would automatically lock this information when you switch to a newer term. The reason is because that structure would have to be retained. The integrity of the grade system will have to be retained, so you do not change it again. Peradventure tomorrow you need to have a new change in your grading system. Instead of editing it or deleting it, nersapp give you room to duplicate, so you can always duplicate this structure. But you can still view what was used there by simply clicking on the information icon here. This would give you every information, but you cannot edit. You can see here the information can be viewed, but you cannot edit. Same thing applicable to CAE. You can click the info icon. You cannot edit or make changes to this content because this information have to retain its integrity for the past grades in previous terms. So if you want to move forward, what you can do in this case here is to duplicate by clicking the duplicate button here. Make some changes, assuming you still want to use it the same way it is. Maybe in your school, you now use test score to be 40. You can change it to 40 here or 50 there, and probably add more rows. You can do that. When you're done, you simply click update. I try to update here. It's telling us here that the CAE scheme name is already in use, so we can use it the same way as it is. So we can add 2 here to make it to be something unique, and click save. So we now have a duplicate, which you can use this now in your current term. Or yes, same thing applicable to CAE or grade here, and same thing applicable to other grading structure for behavior and skills, for attendance, for finances like your collectibles or fee templates. So, but in our tutorial now, we want to show you how you can perform some advanced activities like calling for data from previous term and using in your current term. So we'll switch to CAE scheme. And if this is our new CAE scheme, we can edit this. So part of the things we want to add is a different row. For instance, all this will give you the total score for this term. But assuming I want to incorporate first term score in this result or in this grading structure, so I'm going to go ahead here to add another row. Let's call this row first term. So the score here, since we don't know the score up front, we need to retrieve it from the previous term. So we're going to come here, click here. you see two types of information apart from the literal information. One of them is called the previous term average grade. The second one is called the previous term grade. Then dash you see first. Let's go ahead to explain what these two structure mean with an example. So this is a previous term average grade. The short code is called PTAG, previous terms. Take note, it's terms, not term, previous terms. More like saying you are gathering more than one term, then finding the average for the score. So previous terms average grade. Then we also have what we call previous term grade. For instance, I just want the previous term, like first term grade for a particular student. So it's called previous term grade. So the short code is PTG. So let's look at this example. Assuming we have two students, Chris and Victor, and in their first term, Chris scored total score of 80, Victor scored 90, and your score moved from first term to second term. Chris scored 70, Victor scored 85. So in your third term, assuming you are trying to use a different grading structure to calculate their performance or their total score, and that total score would want you to reference one or two previous term scores, like what you're seeing here. So if you are to reference a PTAG, that's a previous terms average grade for Chris, that means you want to add all the previous terms score, that's total score, and divide it by the number of terms. Like there are two terms here, first term, second term. So we add 80 plus 70, that's 80 plus 70, and divide by 2. So the result will be 75. So on nersapp, you don't necessarily have to do all of this. All you need to do is to provide the word PTAG, and nersapp would programmatically compute this information for you and give you this result of 75 when you are trying to compute grades. Also, if you are trying to assess, let's assume you are trying to use a different grade structure for Victor, and you are trying to assess Victor's previous term grade, and what you want to assess is the first. First means first term in this case here, not second, just one. You can only pick one here. So what is Victor's first term grade? Is 80 or is 90. So right here, you have to tell nersapp PTAG first. All right. When you do that, nersapp would go get his first term score, in this case 90. So we're going to do that in our work here by simply saying in this, we're trying to get the first term from the students. So we're going to come here and use first. You can see PPT, that's previous term grade, first. The reason why we are seeing first is because on this platform, there was a first term and the name there was called first. If there was a second term too, assuming we are in third term and we have first and second term, you will see first and you see second. You can pick any of them differently. And if you want to find the average, you have to use the PTAG. So as you can see here, what you're seeing here is PTG. That's previous term grade. These three beside the PTG is the ID of that term, the ID of the first term. So nersapp doesn't work with the letter, it works with the ID. So this number might be different on yours when you're trying to create a structure that references a PTG, that's a previous term grade. So take note of this. This number might change for different terms. All right, but the point here is that we are trying to get the first term work. So we're going to do this and save and show you how that works. So after making these changes, we simply click save. So let's see an example of a grade that references the previous term grade. Take note, we've set up this structure and that is what we are going to use. So before showing you that example, note that we would go to our settings and make changes, but in this tutorial, we won't show you how to do settings now because we're not trying to show you how to configure your grading structure in settings yet. So as you can see here in continuation, I want to show you an example that makes use of our new grading structure. As you can see, we loaded a class called Nursery 1A and we loaded a subject called English language. As you can see, these are the information and we want to start entering the new test information, exams, probably total score. But you can see here that the system already computed the first term. Why? Because in our grading structure, we said that we want to also make use of the PTG, which is previous term, and we mentioned that we want it for first. So this were the total score this student, in this case Fikabo, had, and 75 for Naomi and 75 for Priscilla. So you can see nersapp simply went and fetched it, and you don't have to go through this test again.